The invisible force controlling your life. There is a force in your life, quiet, invisible, and incredibly powerful. You cannot see it, you cannot touch it, and yet it shapes almost every decision you make. It determines how you think about money, how you react to opportunities, how you handle fear, risk, and uncertainty, and most importantly, it decides whether you grow or stay stuck. This force is not your intelligence. It is not your education. It is not even your circumstances. It is your mindset. But not just any mindset. There are two specific ways of thinking that silently divide people into completely different life paths. One leads to stress, fear, and constant limitation. The other leads to growth, creativity, and unexpected success. These are known as the scarcity mindset and the abundance mindset. At first glance, they may sound like simple ideas, almost too simple to matter. But science tells a very different story. Researchers have discovered that when the human brain perceives scarcity, whether it is a lack of money, time, or opportunity, it begins to change the way it functions. Your attention narrows, your thinking becomes short-term, your ability to make good decisions actually decreases. It is not that you become less intelligent, it is that your brain becomes occupied with survival. Imagine this. You're walking through a desert with very little water left. Your throat is dry, your body is tired, the sun is burning above you. In that moment, you're not thinking about your long-term goals. You're not planning your future. You're not exploring new ideas. Your entire mind is focused on one thing. How do I survive right now? This is the essence of the scarcity mindset. Now, here's the surprising part. You do not need to be poor to experience scarcity. You do not need to be struggling. A wealthy person can have a scarcity mindset. A successful person can still feel a deep sense of lack. Because scarcity is not about what you have, it's about how your mind interprets what you have. On the other hand, there are people who seem to find opportunity where others see obstacles. They take risks when others hesitate. They collaborate when others compete. They are not blind to challenges. They simply do not let those challenges control their thinking. This is the abundance mindset. An abundance mindset doesn't mean ignoring reality. It doesn't mean pretending that everything is easy. It means believing deeply that there are always options, always solutions, always possibilities waiting to be discovered. And this belief changes everything. It changes how you approach problems. It changes how you interact with people. It changes how you respond to failure. But here's where things become even more interesting. These mindsets are not fixed. You were not born with them fully formed. They were shaped, slowly, over time, through your childhood experiences, through the conversations you heard at home, through moments of fear, stress, comparison, and uncertainty. Perhaps you heard things like, money is hard to earn, or opportunities don't come easily, or you have to fight for your share. Or maybe you experienced situations where resources were limited and you had to compete, wait, or go without. Your brain learned something important in those moments. It learned there is not enough. And once that belief is formed, it begins to influence your behavior in ways you may not even notice. You hesitate when opportunity appears. You overthink decisions. You fear losing more than you desire gaining. This is not weakness. This is conditioning. But here's the most powerful truth you'll discover in this audiobook. Your mindset is not fixed. It can be understood. It can be reshaped. It can be transformed. Throughout this audiobook, We'll explore the science behind scarcity and abundance, not in a complicated academic way, but in a way that reveals how these ideas operate inside your daily life. You'll learn how scarcity hijacks your brain and limits your potential, why people stay stuck in cycles of lack even when opportunities exist, how abundance thinking rewires your decision-making and creativity, and most importantly, how you can shift from one mindset to the other. This is not about motivation. This is about awareness. Because once you see the pattern, once you recognize the invisible force, you gain something incredibly powerful: choice. And that choice can change everything. So as you listen to the chapters ahead, don't just hear the words. Observe yourself. Notice your thoughts. Notice your reactions. Notice where scarcity may be quietly influencing your life, because the moment you become aware of it is the moment you begin to break free. And perhaps by the end of this journey, you will not only understand these mindsets, you'll see your life through an entirely new lens. Chapter 1. The moment scarcity takes control. There is a moment, subtle, almost invisible, when your thinking changes. It does not announce itself. There is no warning. But suddenly, you feel pressure. A bill is due. Time is running out. An opportunity feels limited. And without realizing it, your mind begins to narrow. You stop seeing possibilities. You stop thinking long term. You focus only on what is immediately in front of you. This is not a personality flaw. This is not a lack of discipline. This is your brain responding to scarcity. Scarcity is not just about having less. It is about feeling like you don't have enough. And when that feeling takes hold, something remarkable happens inside your mind. Your brain enters a state that psychologists call tunneling. Imagine looking through a narrow tunnel. You can only see what is directly ahead. Everything else disappears from view. That is exactly how scarcity affects your thinking. When money feels tight, your focus locks onto financial problems. When time feels limited, your mind becomes obsessed with deadlines. When opportunities feel rare, you begin to fear missing out. In this state, your brain is not designed to explore. It is designed to survive. Research has shown that scarcity actually reduces your cognitive capacity. In simple terms, it makes you temporarily less intelligent. Not because your brain is weak, but because it is overloaded. Think of your mind like a computer. When too many programs are running at once, everything slows down. Scarcity acts like a heavy program running in the background, constantly consuming your mental energy. You may still be capable of great thinking, but you don't have the mental bandwidth to access it. This explains something most people misunderstand. Why do intelligent people sometimes make poor decisions? Why do capable individuals stay stuck in difficult situations? It is not because they lack ability. It is because scarcity is occupying their mind. Consider this real-life pattern. Someone struggles financially. Because of that stress, they focus only on immediate expenses. They make quick decisions to solve short-term problems. But those decisions often create long-term consequences: more debt, more pressure, more scarcity. And the cycle continues. This is known as the scarcity trap. It is not a trap created by circumstances alone. It is a trap created by the interaction between circumstances and mindset. Now, here's something even more important. Scarcity does not only affect people with limited resources, it affects anyone who perceives limitation. A person with a high income can still feel like it's not enough. A student can feel like there is never enough time. A professional can feel like opportunities are always slipping away. The brain does not measure reality perfectly. It responds to perception. And perception is shaped by past experiences. If you grew up in an environment where resources were uncertain, your brain learned to stay alert, to stay cautious, to expect limitation. That learning may have helped you survive in the past, but in the present, it can quietly limit your growth. Here's the key insight. Scarcity is not just something you experience, it is something your brain learns to expect. And once it becomes a pattern, it begins to influence your decisions automatically. You might notice it in small ways, hesitating before investing in yourself, avoiding risks even when the reward is high, holding on to things out of fear of losing them, comparing yourself constantly to others. These are not random behaviors. They are signals of a mind trying to protect itself from loss. But protection comes at a cost, because while scarcity helps you focus, it also limits your vision. You become efficient in the short term, but restricted in the long term. So the question is not, do you experience scarcity? Because everyone does at some point. The real question is, do you recognize when it is controlling your thinking? Because awareness is the first step to change. As you move forward, begin to observe your own patterns. Notice when your thinking becomes narrow. Notice when fear of loss becomes stronger than desire for growth. Do not judge it. Simply notice it. Because the moment you see scarcity clearly is the moment it begins to lose its power over you. Chapter 2. The Hidden Cost of Not Enough. What does it really cost to believe that there is not enough? At first, the answer seems obvious. You might think it costs money, or opportunities, or time. But the real cost of a scarcity mindset goes much deeper. It costs you clarity. It costs you confidence. And most dangerously, it costs you your future. Scarcity does not just change how you think in the moment. It changes how you see the world. When your mind is dominated by not enough, everything begins to look limited. Opportunities feel rare. Success feels distant. Other people begin to feel like competitors rather than collaborators. This creates a subtle but powerful shift in behavior. You stop asking, what is possible, and start asking, what could go wrong? Over time, this way of thinking becomes automatic. It becomes your default lens. And once that happens, you are no longer just experiencing scarcity, you are living inside it. One of the most damaging effects of this mindset is something called loss aversion. This is a psychological tendency where the pain of losing something feels stronger than the pleasure of gaining something. In simple words, you fear losing $100 more than you value gaining $100. Now think about how this affects your decisions. You avoid risks, even when they are reasonable. You hold on to comfort, even when it limits growth. You say no to opportunities, not because they are bad, but because they are uncertain. This is why many people stay in situations they are unhappy with, a job they do not enjoy, a routine that does not fulfill them, a lifestyle that feels stuck. It's not because they lack ambition, it's because their mind is trying to avoid loss, not pursue gain. Scarcity also affects how you interact with other people. When you believe there is limited success, limited money, limited opportunity, You begin to see others as threats. Their success feels like your loss. Their progress feels like your delay. This creates competition where collaboration could exist, and in doing so, it closes doors that could have led to growth. But perhaps the most dangerous cost of scarcity is this: it limits your imagination. Think about this carefully. Every innovation, every business, every breakthrough idea started as a possibility in someone's mind. But a scarcity mindset does not allow you to see possibilities. It keeps you focused on limitations. This is why two people in the same situation can have completely different outcomes. One sees a problem and feels stuck. The other sees the same problem and looks for opportunity. The difference is not intelligence, it's mindset. Now, here's the truth most people avoid. Scarcity can feel safe. Yes, safe, because it keeps you in familiar territory. It protects you from risk. It gives you a reason to stay where you are. But that safety is an illusion. Because while you're protecting yourself from loss, you're also preventing yourself from growth. So the real cost of scarcity is not what you lose today. It's what you never allow yourself to gain tomorrow. As you listen to this, ask yourself, where in your life are you playing safe, not because you want to, but because you are afraid to lose? Where are you holding back, not because you lack ability, but because you fear losing what you already have? These questions are not meant to make you uncomfortable. They're meant to make you aware. Because once you see the cost clearly, you begin to question the mindset that created it. And that's where transformation begins. In the next chapter, we'll explore the other side of this equation, a different way of thinking, a different way of seeing the world, a mindset that doesn't ignore challenges, but refuses to be limited by them. This is where the shift begins, from limitation to possibility, from scarcity to abundance. Chapter 3: The Birth of Abundance Thinking. There is a moment in life when something shifts. Nothing changes on the outside. Your environment remains the same. Your resources may still be limited, and yet everything feels different. Because for the first time, you begin to see possibility. This is where abundance thinking begins. Not in wealth, not in success, not in perfect conditions, but in a single realization. Maybe there's more available to me than I can currently see. Abundance is often misunderstood. People think it means having unlimited money, endless opportunities, or constant success. But that is not what abundance truly is. Abundance is a way of interpreting reality. It is the belief that opportunities can be created, resources can be expanded, and growth is always possible, even in difficult situations. Where scarcity says there is not enough, abundance says there might be another way. And that small difference in thinking creates a massive difference in outcomes. From a scientific perspective, abundance thinking does something powerful to your brain. It widens your attention. Instead of tunneling on one problem, your mind begins to explore multiple possibilities. You start asking better questions, like, what else can I try? Who can help me? What am I not seeing yet? These questions open mental pathways that scarcity keeps closed. This is why people with an abundance mindset often appear more creative. It is not that they are born with better ideas. It is that their mind is not restricted by fear. Think about a time when you felt relaxed, confident, and open. In that state, ideas come naturally. You think more clearly. You see connections more easily. This is the mental environment where abundance thrives. Now, compare that to a moment of stress and pressure. Your thinking becomes rigid. You focus on what might go wrong. You struggle to see alternatives. That's the environment of scarcity. The difference between these two states is not just emotional, it's neurological. Your brain literally functions differently depending on your mindset. But here's an important truth. Abundance does not mean ignoring reality. It does not mean pretending problems don't exist. It means choosing to believe that problems are not the end of the story. People with an abundance mindset still face challenges. They still experience failure. They still feel fear, but they interpret those experiences differently. Failure becomes feedback. Challenges become opportunities to adapt. Fear becomes a signal, not a stop sign. This mindset is deeply connected to what psychologists call a growth mindset, the belief that abilities are not fixed but can be developed. When you combine growth thinking with abundance thinking, something powerful happens. You stop seeing limits as permanent obstacles and start seeing them as temporary obstacles. Now, here's where abundance becomes truly transformative. It changes how you interact with other people. In a scarcity mindset, success feels competitive. If someone else wins, you lose. But in an abundance mindset, success becomes collaborative. You begin to see value in sharing ideas, building relationships, and learning from others, because you believe that growth is not limited. This shift alone can change the trajectory of your life, because opportunities often come through people, and people are naturally drawn to those who think expansively. But perhaps the most powerful aspect of abundance is this: it gives you permission to think bigger. When scarcity dominates your mind, your goals become small and safe. You aim for what feels achievable, not what's truly possible. But when abundance takes hold, your vision expands. You start imagining outcomes that once felt unrealistic, and slowly, those ideas begin to shape your actions. This is how change begins, not with external resources, but with internal perspective. So as you move forward, consider this question: what would you do differently if you truly believed there was more available to you? More opportunities, more solutions, more ways forward. Because that belief is the foundation of abundance, and once it begins to take root, it changes everything. Chapter 4. Why some people see opportunity everywhere. Have you ever noticed something strange? Two people can stand in the exact same situation and see completely different realities. One person sees obstacles. This is too difficult. There's no way this will work. I don't have what it takes. The other sees opportunity. This is challenging, but possible. What can I learn from this? There must be a way forward. Same situation, same resources, same environment, but entirely different outcomes. Why? The answer lies in how your brain filters information. At every moment, your brain is receiving an overwhelming amount of data: sounds, sights, thoughts, memories, possibilities. But it cannot process everything, so it filters. And this filter is influenced by your beliefs. If you believe that opportunities are rare, your brain will focus on limitations. It will highlight risks. It will magnify uncertainty. It will ignore possibilities. But if you believe that opportunities can be created, your brain begins to search for them. It notices patterns others miss. It connects ideas in new ways. It becomes more alert to potential. This is not magic. It is a function of your brain's reticular activating system, a network that decides what deserves your attention. In simple terms, you do not see the world as it is. You see the world as your mind is trained to see it. This explains why abundance thinkers often find opportunities. They are not necessarily luckier. They are simply more aware of what is possible. Now, here is where it becomes even more interesting. Opportunity is rarely obvious. It often appears disguised as problems, uncertainty, change. A scarcity mindset sees these as threats. An abundance mindset sees them as entry points. For example, a sudden change in your life might feel like instability, but it could be a chance to explore a new path. A problem might feel frustrating, but it could contain the exact challenge needed to grow your skills. The difference is not the situation, it is the interpretation. People who consistently succeed are not those who avoid problems. They are those who learn to extract value from them. This ability comes from a simple but powerful habit. They ask better questions. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" they ask, "What can I do with this?" Instead of focusing on what is missing, they focus on what is available. This shift in questioning changes everything, because the quality of your questions determines the quality of your thinking, and your thinking shapes your actions. Now, let's address a common misunderstanding. Some people believe that seeing opportunity everywhere is unrealistic. They think it means ignoring risks or being overly optimistic. But true abundance thinking is not blind optimism. It is balanced awareness. It acknowledges challenges, but refuses to be limited by them. It sees risk, but also sees potential reward. It accepts uncertainty, but remains open to possibility. This balance is what makes abundance thinking powerful. It keeps you grounded in reality while allowing you to move beyond it. Over time, this mindset creates a powerful cycle. You begin to take more action. You gain more experience. You discover new opportunities. And each success reinforces your belief that more is possible. This is the opposite of the scarcity trap. This is the abundance cycle. So, the next time you face a difficult situation, pause for a moment and ask yourself, am I seeing this clearly, or am I seeing it through the lens of limitation? Because sometimes, the opportunity is not hidden, it is simply unrecognized. And the moment you learn to recognize it, you begin to unlock a completely different way of living. Chapter 5. The Scarcity Trap. Why it's so hard to escape. There is a reason why so many people remain stuck, even when they desperately want to change. It is not laziness. It is not lack of intelligence. And it is not simply bad luck. It is something far more subtle. A loop. A cycle. A trap. This is the scarcity trap. And once you understand how it works, you will begin to see it everywhere. The trap begins with a simple condition: limited resources. This could be money, time, energy, opportunities, anything that feels insufficient. When resources feel limited, your brain reacts instantly. It focuses, it narrows, It prioritizes the most urgent need. At first, this seems helpful. You become efficient. You handle immediate problems. You survive. But here is where the trap begins to form. Because while you are solving short-term problems, you are neglecting long-term solutions. Imagine someone struggling financially. They focus on paying the next bill, covering the next expense, getting through the next week. These actions are necessary, but they leave no room for learning new skills, planning for the future, creating new opportunities. So, the situation remains the same. Or worse, it becomes more difficult. This creates more pressure, more stress, more scarcity, and the cycle repeats. This is the trap, not because of a single decision, but because of a pattern of thinking reinforced over time. Now here's the most important part. The scarcity trap is not just external. It becomes internalized. At some point, scarcity is no longer just your situation. It becomes your identity. You begin to think, I'm just bad with money. Opportunities don't come to people like me. This is just how life is. These thoughts feel real, but they are not facts. They are adaptations, your mind trying to make sense of repeated experiences. And once these beliefs take root, they begin to shape your behavior automatically. You avoid risks because risk feels dangerous. You resist change because change feels uncertain. You settle for less because more feels unrealistic. And slowly, without realizing it, you build a life that reflects those beliefs. This is why escaping scarcity is not just about changing circumstances. It is about changing patterns. But here is the challenge. Scarcity consumes your mental energy, which means you have less energy available to think your way out of it. This is why advice like, just think positive, doesn't work, because scarcity is not just a thought. It is a state of mind, a condition where your brain is under constant pressure. So breaking the cycle requires something different. It requires awareness first. You must begin to notice when your thinking becomes reactive, when your decisions are driven by urgency, when fear of loss overrides possibility. This awareness creates a small but powerful space, a moment where you can pause before reacting. And in that pause, you gain something you didn't have before: choice. You can choose to step back, to consider long-term impact, to ask a different question. It will not feel natural at first because your brain is used to operating in survival mode. But over time, these small moments of awareness begin to break the pattern. And once the pattern begins to break, the trap begins to weaken. Remember this: you did not create the scarcity trap overnight, and you will not escape it instantly. But every time you recognize it, every time you choose differently, you take a step outside of it. And eventually, those steps become a new path. Chapter 6: Rewiring the Mind, from Limitation to Possibility. If scarcity is learned, then it can be unlearned. This is where transformation begins, not in your environment, not in your bank account, not in your circumstances, but in your neural patterns. Your brain is not fixed. It is adaptable, flexible, constantly changing based on your experiences and thoughts. This ability is known as neuroplasticity. Every thought you repeat, every belief you reinforce, every decision you make strengthens certain neural pathways in your brain. Think of it like walking through a forest. The more you walk the same path, the clearer and easier it becomes. Scarcity is simply a path that has been walked many times. But here is the powerful part. You can create a new path. At first, it will feel unfamiliar, uncomfortable, even unnatural, because your brain prefers what it already knows, even if what it knows is limiting. So shifting to an abundance mindset is not about forcing positivity. It is about training your mind to think differently. And this training begins with something simple: attention. What you focus on expands in your awareness. If you constantly focus on what is missing, your brain will continue to highlight lack. But if you begin to focus on what is available, your brain starts to notice resources, opportunities, and possibilities. This does not mean ignoring problems. It means choosing where to place your mental energy. The next step is language. The words you use, internally and externally, shape your thinking. Notice the difference between these statements: "I can't afford this," versus "How can I afford this?" The first statement closes the door. The second opens a possibility. This small shift in language changes how your brain responds. It moves you from limitation to exploration. Another powerful tool is reframing. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What can this teach me?" Instead of seeing failure as an end, see it as feedback. This does not eliminate discomfort, but it changes its meaning. And meaning is what shapes your experience. Now let's talk about action, because mindset without action remains abstract. To truly shift from scarcity to abundance, you must begin to act in ways that reflect abundance. This does not require big, risky decisions. It starts small. Investing time in learning, helping others without expecting immediate return, taking calculated risks, exploring new ideas. These actions send a powerful signal to your brain: there is more available than I thought. And as you repeat these behaviors, your brain begins to adapt. The old scarcity pathways weaken, the new abundance pathways strengthen. Over time, what once felt unnatural becomes your default way of thinking. But there is one final piece that makes this transformation sustainable: environment. Your mindset is influenced by the people around you, the conversations you hear, the ideas you are exposed to. If you are constantly surrounded by scarcity thinking, it becomes difficult to maintain abundance. But when you expose yourself to growth-oriented people, expansive ideas, new perspectives, your thinking begins to shift naturally. You start to see what is possible, not just in theory, but in reality. So as you move forward, remember this: you are not trying to become someone else. You are training your mind to see more than it was previously conditioned to see. And with each new thought, each new action, each new perspective, you move further away from limitation and closer to possibility. Chapter 7: Money, Fear, and the Illusion of Security. Money. Few things trigger the scarcity mindset as powerfully as this one word. It represents survival, freedom, status, security. And yet, for many people, it also represents fear. Think about the last time you worried about money. Maybe it was a bill, an unexpected expense, or simply the feeling that what you have isn't enough. In that moment, your thinking likely changed. You became more cautious, more controlled, more focused on protecting what you already have. This is natural because money is deeply connected to survival in the modern world. But here is where things become complicated. For many people, the fear around money is not based only on their current situation. It is based on past conditioning. If you grew up hearing things like, "Money doesn't grow on trees," "We can't afford that," "Rich people are different," your brain absorbed more than just words. It absorbed beliefs. These beliefs form the foundation of your financial mindset, and once they are established, they begin to influence your decisions automatically. This is why two people earning the same income can have completely different financial outcomes. One saves, invests, and looks for opportunities. The other spends, avoids risk, and lives in constant worry. The difference is not income, it is mindset. Now, let's address one of the biggest illusions about money. The belief that more money will eliminate scarcity. It sounds logical. If you have more, you should feel secure. But in reality, many people earn more and still feel like it's not enough. Why? Because scarcity is not about the amount, it is about the perception. If your mind is trained to focus on lack, it will find lack even in abundance. You might start comparing yourself to others, raising your lifestyle, expanding your expenses, and suddenly, what once felt like enough no longer does. This creates a cycle. More income, more expectations, more pressure, more scarcity. This is why true financial freedom is not just external, it is internal. It requires shifting from, "I need more to feel secure," to, "I can create value and opportunities will follow." This shift changes how you approach money. Instead of hoarding it out of fear, you begin to use it strategically. Instead of avoiding risk completely, you begin to take calculated risks. Instead of focusing only on saving, you focus on growing. This is the essence of an abundance-based financial mindset. Now, let's talk about fear, because fear is at the center of scarcity. Fear of losing money, fear of making mistakes, fear of uncertainty. These fears are not irrational, but they can become limiting. Because when fear dominates your decisions, you stop exploring, you stop experimenting, you stop growing. And in doing so, you unintentionally limit your financial potential. But here is an important truth. Risk is not the enemy. Uninformed risk is. An abundance mindset does not ignore risk. It prepares for it. It learns. It adapts. It calculates. This is what allows growth to happen. So the next time you think about money, pause. Ask yourself, am I making this decision from fear or from possibility? Because that single distinction can change your entire financial future. And remember, money is not just a resource, it is a reflection of how you think. Change the thinking, and the results will follow. Chapter 8. Relationships. Competition versus collaboration. Scarcity does not just affect how you think about money. It shapes how you see people. And this may be one of its most hidden effects. When your mind is dominated by scarcity, you begin to see life as a competition. There are limited opportunities, limited success, limited recognition. And if someone else gets ahead, it feels like you are falling behind. This creates a quiet tension in your relationships. You may not express it openly, but internally you compare, you measure, you question your own progress based on others. This is the comparison trap. And it is fueled by a simple belief. There is not enough for everyone. But here's the problem. This belief isolates you. Because instead of learning from others, you feel threatened by them. Instead of collaborating, you compete. And in doing so, you limit your own growth. Now, let's explore the alternative. An abundance mindset changes how you see people. It replaces competition with collaboration. You begin to believe that someone else's success does not reduce yours. There are multiple paths to growth. Opportunities can be shared and expanded. This shift creates a completely different dynamic. You become open to learning from others, supporting others, building meaningful connections. And these connections often lead to opportunities you could not have created alone. Because growth is rarely a solo journey. Think about it. Most opportunities come through conversations, recommendations, partnerships. And these things only happen when you are open, not guarded. Now, let's address something important. Collaboration does not mean weakness. It does not mean depending on others. It means recognizing that together, more is possible. This is why highly successful individuals often emphasize relationships, not because they need others to succeed, but because they understand the power of shared growth. Now, let's talk about trust. Scarcity reduces trust. When you believe resources are limited, you become cautious, protective, sometimes even defensive. You question intentions, you hesitate to share, you hold back. But abundance increases trust, not blindly, but intentionally. You become willing to share ideas, offer value, build connections, because you believe that giving does not reduce what you have, it often multiplies it. This is a principle that many people struggle to accept because it feels counterintuitive. How can giving lead to gaining? But in reality, when you provide value, you create opportunities. People remember, people respond, people reciprocate. And over time, this creates a network of growth. Now, let's return to the comparison trap. Social environments, especially in today's world, constantly expose you to others' success. And if you're not careful, you begin to measure your life against theirs. This reinforces scarcity, because you start focusing on what you lack instead of what you have. But abundance shifts this perspective. Instead of comparing, you become curious. What can I learn from them? What strategies are they using? How can I apply this in my own way? This transforms comparison into growth. And growth is the foundation of abundance. So, as you reflect on your relationships, ask yourself, am I seeing people as competitors or as potential collaborators? Because the answer to that question will shape not only your mindset, but your entire journey. And in the long run, it's not just what you know, but who you grow with that determines how far you go. Chapter 9. Time Scarcity, the silent pressure controlling your life. There is one form of scarcity that almost everyone experiences, yet very few people truly understand it. It is not about money. It is not about opportunity. It is about time. You have likely felt it before. The sense that there is never enough time. Too many responsibilities, too many tasks, too many expectations. And no matter how much you do, it never feels like enough. This is time scarcity, and it is one of the most powerful forces shaping your daily behavior. When time feels limited, your brain reacts in the same way it does to any form of scarcity. It narrows your focus. It prioritizes urgency. It pushes you into reaction mode. You begin to think in terms of what needs to be done right now. This can be useful in short bursts, but when it becomes constant, it creates a pattern. You live in a cycle of urgency, jumping from one task to another, responding instead of creating, reacting instead of planning. And slowly, without realizing it, you lose control of your time. Now, here's the paradox. The more you feel like you don't have enough time, the more inefficient your thinking becomes. You rush decisions, you overlook details, you focus only on immediate outcomes. And in doing so, you often create more problems that require more time to fix. This is the time scarcity loop. Just like financial scarcity, it feeds itself. Now, let's go deeper. Time scarcity is not always about having too much to do. Often, it's about how you perceive time. Two people can have the same schedule and experience it completely differently. One feels overwhelmed, the other feels in control. The difference is not time, it is mindset. When you believe time is always running out, you operate under pressure. When you believe time can be managed and prioritized, you operate with intention. This shift is subtle, but powerful. Now, let's explore how scarcity affects your priorities. When your mind is in scarcity mode, you focus on what is urgent. But not everything urgent is important. Important tasks like learning, planning, and long-term growth often require time that does not feel urgent. So they get postponed. And as they get postponed, your long-term progress slows down. This is why many people feel busy, but not productive. They are constantly doing, but rarely progressing. Now, let's look at the abundance perspective. An abundance mindset views time differently. Instead of asking, "How do I do everything?" it asks, "What truly matters?" This shift changes how you use your time. You begin to prioritize high-impact actions, long-term growth, meaningful work. You stop trying to do everything and start focusing on what creates the most value. This is not about working more, it is about working intentionally. Now, here's a powerful practice. Create space. In a world driven by urgency, space feels uncomfortable. But space is where clarity exists. It allows you to think, to reflect, to plan. Without space, you are always reacting. With space, you begin to lead your time. Now ask yourself, am I controlling my time, or is my time controlling me? Because time is not just a resource. It is a reflection of your priorities. And your priorities are shaped by your mindset. Shift the mindset, and you begin to reclaim control. Not by doing more, but by doing what truly matters. Chapter 10. The Identity Shift. Becoming an Abundance Thinker. At the deepest level, this is not about money. It is not about time. It is not even about opportunity. It is about identity. Who you believe you are shapes everything. Your decisions, your habits, your expectations, and ultimately, your results. Up until now, we have explored how scarcity and abundance influence your thinking. But for lasting change, you must go one step further. You must shift from "I want to think differently" to "I am someone who thinks differently." This is the identity shift. Because temporary change happens through effort, but permanent change happens through identity. If you see yourself as someone who struggles, you will unconsciously create behaviors that reflect that belief. If you see yourself as someone who lacks, you will focus on what is missing. But if you begin to see yourself as someone who creates value, who finds opportunities, who grows through challenges, everything begins to change. Not because you force it, but because it becomes natural. Now, here is the challenge. Your current identity is not random. It was built over time. Through experiences, through repetition, through reinforcement. So changing it requires the same process. You must begin to evidence a new identity. This does not mean making bold declarations. It means taking small, consistent actions that align with the person you want to become. For example, if you want to become an abundance thinker, start acting like one. Look for opportunities in small situations. Practice gratitude for what you have. Invest in learning and growth. Surround yourself with expansive ideas. Each action sends a signal to your brain. This is who I am becoming. And over time, these signals reshape your identity. Now, let's address something important. Doubt. Even as you begin to shift, your old patterns will not disappear immediately. You will still feel fear. You will still experience hesitation. You will still have moments of scarcity thinking. This is normal. The goal is not perfection. The goal is progress. Each time you choose abundance over scarcity, you strengthen the new identity and weaken the old one. Now, here is a powerful realization. You do not need to wait for external success to feel abundant. Abundance begins internally. It is a way of seeing, a way of thinking, a way of being. And once it becomes part of your identity, external results begin to follow. Because your actions align with your beliefs, and your beliefs shape your reality. So ask yourself, who am I becoming? Not based on your past, not based on your current situation, but based on the choices you're making today. Because identity is not fixed. It is created. And with each decision, you are either reinforcing scarcity or building abundance. Choose carefully. Because over time, those choices become your life. Final reflection. The choice that changes everything. At the beginning of this journey, we spoke about an invisible force, a quiet influence shaping your thoughts, your decisions, and your life. Now, you can see it clearly: scarcity and abundance. Two ways of thinking, two ways of seeing the world, two completely different paths. One is driven by fear, fear of loss, fear of limitation, fear of not having enough. The other is driven by possibility, the belief that more can be created, that growth is always available, that limitations are not permanent. Neither mindset is right or wrong. Scarcity exists for a reason. It protects you. It helps you survive. It keeps you alert to risk. But when it becomes dominant, it limits you. It narrows your thinking. It restricts your actions. It keeps you focused on what is missing instead of what is possible. Abundance, on the other hand, expands you. It opens your thinking. It encourages exploration. It allows you to see beyond immediate limitations. But it requires awareness. Because without awareness, you fall back into old patterns. Now, here is the most important truth of all. You will experience both. There will be moments of scarcity, moments of pressure, moments of fear, moments where your thinking becomes narrow. And there will be moments of abundance, moments of clarity, moments of creativity, moments where possibilities feel endless. The goal is not to eliminate scarcity completely. That is not realistic. The goal is to recognize it, to understand when it is influencing you, and to choose consciously how you respond. Because between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space, you have power. The power to pause. The power to question. The power to choose a different perspective. That choice may seem small in the moment, but over time, it becomes everything. Because your life is not shaped by one decision. It is shaped by patterns. And patterns are built through repetition. Every time you choose possibility over limitation, growth over fear, collaboration over competition, long-term thinking over short-term reaction, you are building a new pattern, a pattern of abundance. Now, imagine this: a life where you are not controlled by fear of loss, where you are not constantly worried about what is missing, where you see opportunities even in difficult situations, where you trust your ability to adapt, to grow, to create. This is not a fantasy. It is a result of consistent thinking, and it begins with awareness. So, as you move forward, carry this understanding with you. Notice your thoughts. Notice your reactions. Notice when scarcity appears. Do not fight it. Do not judge it. Simply recognize it. And then ask yourself, is this helping me grow or keeping me small? And in that moment, choose. Choose to expand your thinking. Choose to explore possibilities. Choose to act with intention. Not because it is easy, but because it is powerful. Because every choice you make is shaping the person you are becoming. And over time, that person shapes the life you live. So, the question is no longer, is there enough? The question is, what am I choosing to see? Because in the end, your reality is not just what exists. It is what you allow yourself to perceive. And that changes everything.